Welcome to the IonaHoops.com podcast with your host, Guy Flatico.
Hey there, Gaels fans. Season 2, episode 31 is upon you. It's been kind of a busy spring with all of the roster movement and even some scheduling updates along the way. Let's see what the summer might have in store for us. We're going to continue to bring you great guests to educate us all on the newest Gaels over the next couple months. And as the calendar hits September, we'll begin season 3 of this podcast with preview season, as we'll start to bring on MAC and college hoops experts to take a look at the 2022-2023 Gaels and MAC hoops. But for now, let's take a look at some Iona Iotas.
Iotas.
Murphy's Law struck at the onset of the last episode of this podcast. No sooner had I told you about Norfolk State transfer Jalen Hawkins and having Iona in his final 3 and me not expecting him to join the Gaels, but literally the day the episode dropped, he committed to Iona. What the heck do I know? Why are you even listening? Anyway, yes, Jalen Hawkins is apparently a Gael. Apparently. The 6'2 senior, he averaged 12.9 points, 3.7 boards, 1.6 assists while shooting 46% from the field and 36% from 3 in leading Norfolk State to the NCAAs last March before entering. Something odd, though. Hawkins has yet to be added to Iona's roster with all the other newcomers. Well, the timing of Hawkins committing has played a role. But how can Iona take this? So you couldn't even take him when the roster's full, right? Lots of rumors swirling that Hawkins will be joining Iona as a walk-on. But even that would not prevent him from appearing on the roster. Per Hawkins' Instagram, he's also apparently rehabbing an injury. So let's see how it all plays out. I'm not making any guesses this time around. Eventually, though, I do expect to see Jalen officially added to the roster.
Iotas.
Everyone thought the Hawkins commit made sense just a couple days later when word spread that Josh Duwash would be leaving Iona to return to Australia. Many wondered what might have been had Duwash gotten a bit more run this season, especially if you hit those 2 early threes against Ryder in the MAC tourney loss. Duwash had plenty of potential, it was pretty clear, but it was getting harder to see him getting a lot of minutes on this team, given the amount of guards that were brought in, especially after Hawkins committed. So, another Gael departs. Good luck in your return down under, Josh. Also, I should note, though, that it's my understanding that the Hawkins arrival and the Duwash departure are completely unrelated. Again, let's see how it all plays out.
Iotas.
A10, NCAA team, whatever. It's all the same in Rick Pitino's world. What the heck am I talking about? You guys are going to recall back in the now infamous fan Zoom call from a couple months back, Pitino noted that Iona would be playing an NCAA A10 team at Mohegan Sun. Well, that's not true. But the actual opponent on tap is no slouch, as the Gaels will take on Vermont at the casino on November 18th. There should be another game as part of that event as well, but for now, the Gaels and Catamounts serve as a good excuse to hit on 16 and hope for the best. Anyone up for a pregame meal at Tuscany, hit me up. See you there. June 15th represented the day where college hoops recruiting kicks into high gear, and Iona is no exception, as our offer roundup will demonstrate.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
We're going to start off this roundup with a note from the class of 2022. It's been reported on Twitter that Jordan Turner will be announcing his college destination around the end of June. The 6'3" point guard of Cardinal Ritter in Indianapolis holds offers from Iona, Penn State, Grand Valley, Bethune-Cookman, Youngstown State, Florida Gulf Coast, Bowling Green, and others. So we'll have to see if anything's going to come out. That's a whole lot of names there. I haven't seen a narrowed down list. And last time I said that there was a final group that Iona was part of was with Hawkins. So I'm not saying a word here. I would just be surprised if we take somebody this late in the game. But now let's move on to the class of 2023. We have 7-footer Guy Chal. Not G-A-I, not G-U-I. I figured I'd clear that up. Anyway, he's out of Atlanta. He's originally from the Sudan, so there's definitely no mistaking he and I. You can picture this one, though. Length and athleticism galore. 4 stars, ESPN, offers from Georgia Tech, Auburn, St. John's, Georgia, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, Xavier, Vanderbilt, and Tulane. So let's see where that one pans out as we move forward in time. Whole bunch of names for 2024. We're going to start off with Dwayne Thompson, a 6'7" small forward out of Putnam Science. He's got recent offers from Bonaventure, Fairfield, Albany, and Brown, with past offers from the likes of Seton Hall and UMass. Another 6'7" forward from the class of 2024, Demarius Owens from Western Reserve in upstate New York, and the Albany City Rocks, offers from Syracuse and Creighton, as well as Cincy, UMass, Siena, and UMBC. Lastly, we have 2024 Anthony Akande, a 6'4" shooting guard out of Arts High School in Newark. This kid is just now starting to get some love, and Iona was his first offer. Kid's athletic with great hands and defense first kind of player. So our interest is not a shock on that regard. Siena has also shown interest in him, but as we know, that program has been dead since.
You shall not pass!
One final note. Last episode, I told you about 4-star Carlton Carrington and his offer from Iona. Well, Carrington, right after that pod, ended up naming Iona among his final 5, along with George Mason, Loyola Chicago, Pitt, and Stanford. Not bad competition there. Carrington, though, was a heavy lean toward Pitt all along, and he indeed opted for the Panthers. All right, let's move on and hear from some other folks who can drop some knowledge regarding some of the new Gaels. All right, everybody, Iona fans, I am honored to bring you Coach Pete Wehye from Our Savior Lutheran. Now, you're going to know that name quite a bit because, well, not one but 2 of our new Gaels are coming from Our Savior Lutheran, and we're not done recruiting from there either, apparently. So, Coach, welcome to the IonaHoops.com podcast.
Man, it's my pleasure, man. I am happy to be on. Super happy.
Coach, you've been cranking out D1 players for years at OSL, and now you got a pair of guys that have just come into Iona. I know Iona offered at least one other player. We can get into that a little bit. Before we get to all those guys, can you tell us about your relationship with Coach Patino and the rest of the staff? How did that get going? How long have you known Coach Patino?
Prior to Patino being there, Coach Ricky, who's been on the staff, recruited in Tim Cluse's era. He recruited Peyton Hudson from us. I'm also with the New York Lightning program, AAU program. So Kelvin Ameo was another player that came out of our Lightning program that was also at Iona. And Tim Cluse, man, was a great guy. Used to go see him at CW Post. So really loved the school. I think Rick Pitino, really how everything started was once he got down here, Coach Tom, the well-traveled assistant coach who's been in the game for a lot of years, started to take a real liking. Came in here, looked and saw, well, what school can I look into or want to build a relationship with? Tom came, let him know I had a relationship with Ricky, and first day of open gym, Rick Pitino was there. I mean, not his assistants, not anybody there. He was there wanting to get to know what I was doing with the program, where do I see guys, his views on the program, echoing that he wanted it to be the Gonzaga, the East. And obviously, when you're talking to a Hall of Famer and the insight and the different things that he gives you, I mean, it is literally amazing. And it made you look at the landscape of the game a little bit differently, meaning that it doesn't matter the level you go. I mean, right now you're looking at St. Peter's, who went to an Elite Eight. And every year it's commonplace. If you look at the upsets and different things that happen in the tournament, your level doesn't matter. It's your opportunity and what you do with the opportunity. So I think that sell was very, very important. Plus the plan he had for the players. So I just think that was something that was really, really amazing, and how he made the players feel at home as well. So I think Rick Pitino did an excellent job, as well as Tom, as well as Ricky, did an excellent job in their recruiting process of these kids. Hands down.
So you had so many players come from your program, go D1. How do you, you just said, it's not even about the level, but every kid wants to go as high as they can. How do you kind of help a kid say, you know what, maybe this is a better fit? Somebody like Io had gotten higher interest, and yet he's at Iona. How do you tell a kid, hey, this is really where you belong?
Well, what happens is that you don't really tell a kid. You sit down and you weigh the pros and cons. You look at the options. Obviously, it's on the kid left to make that decision in the end. What you want to do is you want to show them the different options, different pros and cons that the school has, and does he want to do that? Because I think the only thing that Iona really didn't have was, their big gym. Everything else you could really get right there. And coming from a place like Our Savior Lutheran makes it easy. We've become looked at as the giants. Inside the building, though, right? We want to be giant killers. We want to face the Monteverdes, the Oak Hills. We want to travel wherever. We want to go take down those guys. So I think that sort of mentality in which I've built in the kids made it easy for them to go to a mid-major to be able to try to do the same thing, to want to be giant killers. And I think that's what they saw with Iona. They saw the opportunity to make a difference, to be a trendsetter, to basically be to spearhead the Rick Pitino era, to be able to change the landscape of college basketball. And I think that was one of the biggest things that challenge that Rick Pitino gave them. I think that was one of the reasons why they said, you know what, we would rather stay home and play for a Hall of Fame coach who could teach us different.
Well, let's talk about Sadiku Io for a minute now. He committed back in November. Can you talk about his development during his time? How did his game make that kind of jump where you were like, oh, okay, this kid can go somewhere?
Oh man, it was realistically, he played as a freshman. He had to come in. I remember him as a freshman hitting the side of the backboard, couldn't shoot the basketball. Really tried to get acclimated with the speed of the game. But you saw it happen. A kid like that, Sadiku, man, all 4 years, the kid ain't cut a corner. He touched every line on the sprint. This was something that he wanted. So he worked on his game. He came into the gym late at night. So he would come in the gym 11 o'clock, still be up early for school, worked on his shooting, did the drills that we did in practice so that he could go and play. And I never forget, one of the things that got him was that Jaquan Sanders started as a sophomore, but he didn't. And he was very, very upset and worked his hardest. And it wasn't upset to the point where he was like, oh, Coach Pete, and he did it verbally. He didn't do it in that manner. What he did was he did it through his work. He wanted to get in the gym, go later, run the extra sprint, run harder, be first in the sprint. So, his development just came from his hard work. And this year, the last 2 years, the way he shot the basketball was just a testament to the work he put in the gym. So I just think he always been an exceptional athlete, always been a guy to run through a wall. But I just believe that, man, with that chip on the shoulder that he carries and the work he put in, it's almost guaranteed that he's going to be special and he's going to be successful. It's just, it's just unbelievable. When you see it, you guys do not understand what you guys are in for.
Why, in your mind, is he going to excel in the Pitino system, and why will Iona fans love him?
Pitino is one of the, I'm friends with a lot of the coaches, man, but Pitino, the way he develops is huge. You can look at his track record. You can look at the guys that he's touched. So when you put him with not only a coach, but a staff that is willing to develop and a kid willing to work, the inevitable. Because I think that, to me, that's the hardest part. That's the hardest part. And he has fallen in love with the process. When you get that, success is almost a given.
Why are Iona fans going to love him?
Oh, man, because Iona, we talk about hard work, blue collar. not only does he work hard, not only is he going to be the first on the floor to dive, when he catch that alley-oop somewhere by the top of the box, and he dunks that ball and he yells, that gym is going to erupt because he plays with that energy and that passion that's contagious. I mean, it's just
Crowd feeds
it's
off
Deku.
that. Yeah. All
Oh,
right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So Silas Sunday decided in March to follow him in committing to Iona. Can you
Yes.
tell us about his development and during his time and how Iona was fortunate enough to land a kid with his skill set?
Well, you know, for Silas, a lot of people like Silas, but they didn't love him. Silas was, when he first got here in 8th grade, he was extremely overweight. It was very, very tough for us to get the weight off. Obviously, we don't have the resources that Iona has and strength coaches and things of that nature. But Silas was another dude who had to work, man. He came in 300 plus, and we had to shut him down, and we had to run him, and we had to run him, and we had to run him, and we had to run him. So his years here was Sadiku worked hard, but it was a little bit more difficult. Sadiku was already a specimen. Silas had to run into this body. And I think that for him, he learned how to do different things. So Silas keeps the ball high, soft touch, great hands, hell of a passer.
Mm-hmm.
So we needed to find something that could basically show his skill set, basically play to his strength, and then we take it from there. So realistically, you know, one of the offenses that we run, you know, you're gonna laugh. One of the offensive plays that we run, it was inspired by Rick Pitino's offense. Okay, the Rick Pitino's offense, we've run this play, and Silas is the catalyst. So Silas is actually controlling the play. We throw it to him. He has to make a decision on the back cut, on the handoff, what to do. And they watched us win a championship and him get 26 and 16 and 3 blocks in that system. So you ain't got to look no further. Soft touch, able to shoot the ball, hook over the top, great hands, hell of a rebounder. So one of the things was that Tom was like, look, we need him. And Rick was like, we need him. And for us, we wanted him to go Big Ten. He had Penn State, he had other people, and we felt like we needed to send him someplace that'll utilize the big man and not the MAC. And then we sat with Rick Pitino. And he told us his plan on how to get his body fat down, how to manage his calories, how to change his body, how to run, his potential to be a pro, his potential to where we got him, but his ceiling is so much higher. When we sat down, a lot of people wanted to use him, wasn't sure how they was gonna, you know, what they were gonna do, how things were gonna work. They knew they liked him, but they was like, well, you know, it might take him this amount of time. Rick Pitino had a plan. Once they lost their big in March, it wasn't or they lost him in February. They weren't going back. They said, look, this is who we want. This is what we want to do. We want to bring him up. We want to explain to him. We want to show you guys this is what we want to do in this small setting. So once he saw that, it's the same thing. He a giant killer too. Mm-hmm. So he's like, man, listen, I could build here. They're going to work with me. They're going to love me here.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to go there and be a number. You know what I'm saying?
You know, you talk about his passing skills. If you watched a lot of Iona games this year, I don't know if you got a chance to, Dylan Van Eyck, our power forward, was probably our best passer, and the offense actually would stall when it wouldn't go through him at times. So maybe it's the same idea that Rick has with somebody like with Silas.
And somebody like Silas, and with the size, is no question. And when you see him move and run the floor, and then seen him do some different things, so there ain't no question to his ability and what he's able to do.
Yeah,
No
Rick,
question.
Rick loves the high low between the bigs, passing and all that. That sounds like a good fit in that regard for sure. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I'll ask you the same question. And why will Iona fans love him?
Oh my God, man. He's the big fella. He's the big show. So when you see a kid rebound, when you see him play with his tenacity, and then he gets off the court and he's the gentle giant, you gotta love him. Right? Ireland, hair swinging, but he's tireless. He's willing to do everything, man. And that's the real key, man. These guys came to a place, they're locked in, they're ready to work hard, and they're going to bleed the maroon and gold.
That's awesome. Well, I wanted to have you on to talk about those two guys, but I also want to let Iona fans know that the Iona Our Savior Lutheran connection is not done yet, perhaps. Iona's already offered Christian Jones from the class of 24. My listeners may have heard me mention Jones before. 23, sorry.
23.
People may have heard me mention him before because he's from Stratford, Connecticut, which is where I live now, where I'm based. And I actually coached Christian in Pop Warner when he was 8 years old. So we got a small world thing going on there. And it was very cool when I first saw that Iona offered him. So I was like, well, there's worlds colliding. Can you talk about Christian a little bit for us?
Man, Christian is a super dynamic guard, man. Connecticut dude, man, but got a Bronx attitude. His layup package is ambidextrous. He shoots a high percentage from three, very crafty, pass first guard, could get into the lane, could finish over the top of trees, athletic, dunks ambidextrously just with either hand. I mean, the upside is just real. I mean, I've had Christian here. He's going into his third season, the senior year. Had him here since he was a sophomore. Love him. Doing well on the EYBL. I mean, Christian, and I'm just talking about a great kid. Great kid. You know, and I think that's the biggest part.
It feels like his ceiling is a little higher maybe than Iona. What do you think?
I mean, this weekend he just got offered by George Washington and Seton Hall. He holds offers from Providence. Cal has heavy interest in him, University of California. Shucks, man. Fairfield, I'm trying to think. Rhode Island, like, I mean, there's a lot of people are coming a lot of people are coming after Christian Jones. And it's just getting bigger and bigger as they continue to watch him and his game continues to grow. So he's nothing short of amazing.
So when you have a situation like this, you have two players now going to Iona. This will be the first two guys that you sent to Pitino and his staff at Iona. Do you kind of wait and see how it goes as a coach? So you say you have somebody like Christian Jones who's trying to make a decision. He says, "Coach, what about Iona? You know, what did Silas say about it? What did Sadiku say?" How do you handle that from a coaching perspective with other players at the school?
Okay, you navigate it. Like I'm not one of those coaches that's saying, you know, there's things that happen. I understand both sides of the spectrum. Sometimes kids hit a wall. Sometimes, you know, kids got to regroup. I mean, it happens. I watched it happen with Jared Roden at Seton Hall, right? He didn't have the great success in first two. But we could have pulled him out of there. But look how it worked out for him.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want to do is you don't want to, we're not, the kids that we send there is about hard work. We're not enablers. You know what I'm saying? So we understand how it works. Some kids may take a longer time to develop than others, right? So you got to be patient and understand the process. But it's all about what's being said in the beginning and the plan that's had. As long as we following the plan, sometimes it takes longer than we anticipate. But I just think that I have confidence in the staff. We're willing to work with them. I think we're going to obviously watch how this year goes, but I don't have any reservations. Right now, the guys love it and it's as advertised. So I think that we encourage those things. You know, you watched it happen. St. John's, we're still sending players to Seton Hall years later.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you got to understand that it's all a process and nothing happens overnight. Nothing's a miracle. And I just think that we got to be patient at times.
Mm-hmm. Coach, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on. Certainly, we look forward to seeing you. Look forward to seeing you in New Rochelle making the rounds at some of those home games. And I'll definitely come find you for say hello for sure.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Pleasure. Thank you for having me. Right, and let's go, Gaels.
Let's go, Gaels. I love it. All right, we'll see you. Thanks for coming on, Coach. Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next guest, we have Doug Scott from recruitthebronx.com. Some of you may know what that is, some of you may not, but let's just say that he's got some expertise in some of the Gaels we have coming in. Doug, welcome to our program.
Well, it's an honor. Appreciate it.
Doug, tell us about recruitthebronx.com, what you've been doing. Tell us about your career too and how you got involved in all this stuff.
Well, I'm a longtime coach. I had the pleasure of having a number of college prospects come through my programs. I got to be kind of an expert on the process. And the first thing that struck me about the recruiting process is it's a friggin' disaster for someone that is important as it is to both parties. It just doesn't work very well. And a large part of it is just, it's just imperfect information flow on, and kind of buyer and seller are just really misinformed. I think you see it in the form of all the transfers and the bust and all this other kind of stuff. So, and New York City in particular seemed to be extremely under recruited to me, just because there's not kind of the local hometown kid paper coverage that you're getting, and the kids just in general seem underexposed. It's also a very big and intimidating multi-layered thing. So if you're a coach out in Oklahoma or Nebraska or Utah or whatever, trying to get your arms around New York City basketball is pretty intimidating. And so just through the process, a group of us started feeling this need of trying to shine the light on greater New York City prospects. And that's kind of now materialized in the form of the website, which is recruitthebronx.com. If anybody goes on that and you go to the prospects section, you can see that we're covering over 2,000 kids that are kind of high school freshmen up through postgrads, either playing in New York City or have roots in New York City or whatever loose affiliation we come up with. And we simply collect all the information we can via social media, regular media, scouts, anything, highlight films, everything, and we put. Now we have over a couple of thousand college coaches that come onto the site and kind of become instant experts. Who's what, where do I go? How do I start reaching out to the kids? And they literally sometimes come in to our website and start filtering. Okay, I need a 2023 6'8" and over, and they run through the filters, and all of a sudden we got profiles and contact information on all those kids. So it's just become kind of a nice tool that's really helping the kids of greater New York City get seen by the schools that should be seeing them.
So for an Iona who, again, the staff has only been at Iona for a couple of years, although there's some guy named Patino heading up the staff. So now all of a sudden, two Our Savior Lutheran kids, before there was no real relationship between the two programs. And now we have two kids going there, and Iona's recruiting other kids that are at OSL. How does that evolve in your mind? What does that picture look like? What was the role of the pandemic? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, where to go on that one? Well, first of all, it is just the magic that is Rick Pitino. He's going to open a lot of doors and understand a higher level process than almost anybody else out there. So you're just seeing the result of magic that he's landing a couple of kids now that I personally think have the physical ability. And if you look at the work ethic that got them to where their skills are today, they're probably tracking to play professionally. And they're the kind of kids that in a non-pandemic year, I think would have had multiple Dukes and North Carolinas and Kansas knocking on their door. But the whole process got cramped, and Patino's 20 miles down the road and somehow figured out to overcome that and became a great option for those kids. I think I'd talk a little bit about, maybe inform your listeners, how a high-profile national independent prep school power like OSL gets their kids seen. And part of it is the fact that they are an independent prep school, which means they don't have limits on their basketball season. So in essence, they're doing some kind of basketball workout or practice or open run or whatever, literally the entire school year. So September through June. And if you think about the typical college coach staff, they are incredibly busy from mid-November through when they get knocked out at end of February, end of March, whatever. You know, you got half the staff working on Tuesday's opponent. You got the other half of the staff working on Saturday's opponent, trying to figure out what to do, install that. Boom. There's not a lot of time to go out and kick the tires on new prospects or you know, recruit the ones that you already know. So there's a rule in the NCAA that a Division I college coach can go on campus basically most of the time of the school year. So I would say a school in a like OSL in a typical year would literally have hundreds of college coaches make the migration to the Bronx just to sit in on one of those practices. One, if they go there, they're going to see a bunch of high-level kids playing with and against each other, which is very useful. You don't get that in the normal. I think I looked at OSL's program the other day, and I think they have at least a half dozen guys that are 6'8" and taller. So that's not like your normal high school basketball. That's like your normal Division I basketball. So you get to see those kids playing in that environment, and they get to see you. So it's a bigger part of the recruiting process, and I think a lot of people understand.
All right, let's talk about Sadiku and Silas a little bit more. You're very high on both of them. Why? Tell me what each one of those kids brings to the Iona program.
Okay, so first of all, just, you know, I'm saying I think they're on their path to going pro. That's a difficult process, and you can't predict perfectly. If we did, we have a lot more science than we do. But they both, the minute you walk in the gym and see them, they look like they're NBA bodies. You know, I call Silas Mount Silas. The guy is literally, you know, he's not that far away from a Shaq in terms of just body type. And he sets a screen on you, you're broken for like the next 2 quarters of play. You know, takes up the room, and you sometimes when you get a kid that's big, he's not in love with basketball. He just happens to do basketball. But then Pete Wehye, the coach there, seems to find the right guys that really are hungry about improving themselves, and that really is what kind of projects that who's going to do well, who's hungry enough to keep adding to the skills as the level of the sport changes as you move up. And I think Peter in general picks the right kid, and then he does a lot with them. And by the way, within their gym, there's 6 other guys that are competing for minutes with you that you better give it everything you have. And so that's just a great process. And there's a reason why those kids are having a lot of success. So you got Silas, who's not practicing every day against 6'3" high school kids. He's practicing every day against, you know, 6'10" and 6'11" and guys that want to take his minutes. So, and he just seems to have improved, and he's got touch, and unlike Shaq, he can make his free throws. You can't hack a Shaq down, man. So, you know, it's just really bodes well. And he's 7 foot and built like a building. So he's got a pretty good head start. As far as Sadiku, he's got everything. He's a 6'6" wing that can jump over your head, can knock you over, to play defense. I mean, you watch him play for a few minutes, he wouldn't be out of place in any high majors rotation now as a senior in high school, as opposed to, you know, 2 or 3 years into one of those programs. So it's just, I think both kids are kids, if they got seen by a normal process, what was on their platter to choose from would be a lot broader.
And in terms of the Pitino system, where it's defense first, it's, you know, 110% while you're on the floor, and you may not play 35 minutes a game because of that, because they expect, you know, he wants to go 10, 11, 12 deep when he can. How will those guys fit in that system in your mind? Well,
that's a natural synergy with Pete Wehye's system, right? He's got a lot of talent that's trying to play at the highest level. And so he's not playing high school ball where you're protecting your franchise player. He's playing Pitino ball where you're using all your resources in the maximum way, including, you know, wall-to-wall defense and rebounding and, you know, move without the ball type basketball.
All right. Well, I'm glad we had you on here. I know Iona fans are very high on both of these kids. There's been debates on the Iona message board about, can one of them start? You know, is it possible? Is somebody going to take Nelly Jr. Joseph's job away? All that kind of stuff has been talked about on the Iona board. So I'm glad.
Well, the big picture on all that prediction is the playbook. you know, the kid that's been there for 3 years knows every nuance of what they're doing on team defense.
Yeah.
Every nuance on when we come up against this kind of situation, this is what we're doing offense. So you could be Michael Jordan and you may need to sit a little while until you start getting on the same page with the other team. So that's, you know, I think they both have the physical skills and ability to make immediate impact. The question is, how long does it take them to digest what a very high demand, high standards coach is trying to do?
Yeah. And that's kind of what I said in response. So I'm glad you were on to echo me.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, Doug, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about educating us really about how all of this works. And again, just bringing us some more knowledge on these two new Gaels coming in. Looking forward to seeing what else you get yourself into, and we'll keep an eye on you down the line too.
Well, it's an honor. I appreciate it if your listeners would maybe just take a look at recruitthebronx.com, or maybe go on to Twitter where we're Recruit the Bronx, and you kind of see what we're up to and maybe help spread the word, because we're basically only as good as the input that we're getting from the high school coaches and the AU coaches and all the people that are out there. So the more the people, we're doing it for free, by the way. So we're just trying to help the process for those kids that are working hard to achieve a dream. So thank you for having us on. Well,
it's a really cool endeavor. It sounds like it's headed in the right direction, and it's going to be an invaluable tool for staffs throughout. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for coming on our program today.
Have a great day.
You too. Another episode in the books as we continue to learn more and more about the newest Gaels. There'll be a different kind of excitement in New Rochelle this year as we get closer to the season. So stick around with me and the IonaHoops.com podcast. Until next time, go Gaels.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the IonaHoops.com podcast. This podcast is a production of IonaHoops.com and its publisher Guy Filatico. The opinions shared during this podcast are those of Guy Filatico, IonaHoops.com, and any featured guests. This podcast is not affiliated with Iona College Athletics or the college itself. Thank you for supporting IonaHoops.com.